Okay, so we're going to continue now on page 26b in the Gemara Megillah, and we're going to start over here with Amar Rava. So Amar Rava. So let's see where this is not working here. Amar Rava, says Rava. Now we're talking about what happens when you sell a shul, or you sell, or you exchange the shul for another. Are you allowed to use the shul for whatever? Does it lose its sanctity because you sold it? So we're going to see that if you actually exchange the shul for another place, so the sanctity of the shul transfers from the shul to the other place. The same thing is if you sell it, so you get money in the place of the shul, the sanctity of the shul transfers to the money. So you can use the old shul, or you can use the money for whatever you want. But if you rent out the shul, over there, we don't say that it transfers to the money, because rental has not fully left, you still own it. So just the money of the rental is not sufficient to be allowed to use it. Or let's say you gave it as a collateral. Let's say you gave the shul as a collateral, that, and you want to use, that's not allowed, because there's nothing else in exchange of it that it should rest on. Let's look in the Gemara inside. Amar Rava. Says Rava, Ai Bei Knishta. This Bei Knishta is a shul. Chalufa. It's exchanged. If you exchanged it for another shul or for another item, uzevuna, and it's sale. In other words, you got money for it. You exchanged the place for money. Then it's shori. Then it's permissible. What means permissible? You can use it for whatever. It loses its kedusha. It's no longer considered holy. As Rashi says, let's look in the Rashi. Chalufi uzvuna. Says Rashi, cholo kedushosoi al hachiluf oy al hadomim. The sanctity rests on the exchange or on the money. There is a tangible thing for the sanctity from the shul to be transferred to on the exchange or the money. And therefore, v'hu yotza min hakedusha lihishtamesh boy. And he, the shul, leaves the level of sanctity so that you can use the shul for whatever you want to do it. However, oigura, the rental, umashkoino, or to collateralize it, that's prohibited, which means you can't use that as a. So when you sell or you exchange this for another building, or then the kedusha rests on the new shul or on the money, and it is extracted from the first one. But when you rent it, the previous sanctity does not leave it, and it stays and remains with it. So therefore, you're not allowed to do that. You can't go ahead and rent a shul to be used for things that are not proper for a shul. You can't give a shul as a collateral, so they're going to use the shul for whatever, because the sanctity of the shul remains. That's why oigura, to rent it, umashkuna, and to collateralize it, osur, that is prohibited. My timer, what's the reason? Bikdu shoso koi, it remains in its sanctity. The original sanctity does not leave it, it remains in the kedusha. Okay, now in the olden days they would reuse the bricks like they use for buildings, they would reuse it. So the Gemara wants to know, what about the bricks of a shul? So the Gemara says, livni nami, the same thing applies to the bricks. Just like we said before with regards to the whole building, the same thing is the bricks. The bricks of the shul, Rashi says livni, that's livanim shel beis hakneses. Those are the bricks of the shul. So over there is the same thing. Chalufinhu, their exchange. If you exchange the bricks for something else and the sanctity rests on that object, or vizavuninhu, or if you sell the bricks of the shul, so that sanctity rests on the money, and therefore with the money you have to buy something holy, that meets the standard. Shori, that's permissible, like the same thing as the shul. That's why it says livni nami. The same thing is true for the bricks. However, uzufinhu, to borrow them, I guess over here, a shul you can rent. I know bricks you can't rent. Maybe you can borrow them. But again, there is no return, osur, that is prohibited. And here the Gemara makes a distinction that the bricks that we're talking about over here, that they get the sanctity of the shul and you're not allowed to exchange them, that's only bricks that have been already part of the structure of the shul. But if you're just getting new bricks from Home Depot, you haven't yet put them into the shul. So bricks that, even if you line them up in front of the shul, but you've never actually used them, then there is no kedusha there yet. Hani mili, when do they get kedusha? Is batikta. That's if it's old, meaning batika. Rashi says shenivnu kvar bekoisel beis hakneses shenofal. I mean, if they're in the building, so how do you have bricks that are in there? So Rashi says they have been built already in a wall of a shul that fell down. So those bricks were part of a wall of a shul. And the shul is no longer there. Those bricks, you cannot just use them. You have to exchange them, sell them, but you can't loan them. Avol b'chadito, but new bricks, that you buy new bricks, leis lonbo, we don't have this halacha. Even if you prepare the bricks or you make the bricks for a shul, it still does not get the sanctity of the shul. Avol b'chadito, so Rashi brought it new, shenasa l'shem beis hakneses, that it was made for the purpose of a shul. Leis lon ba, we don't go by this halacha. In other words, you are allowed to use it for whatever you want. The kedusha has never rested on it. Now, there is a debate when you prepare something for Kedusha, does it get the Kedusha? As for example, when you prepare or you weave a garment for a deceased as shrouds, tachrichim, you weave it. So there is one opinion that says the fact that you wove this material into the shrouds, that has already made it into shrouds of a mace, and you can no longer benefit from it. The halacha is that shrouds are prohibited b'hana. You can't benefit from them. So we see that when you prepare, sometimes that preparation already is considered as if it's already done and you're not allowed to benefit from it. But this preparation is talking about when you weave a garment, you make the shrouds for the mace. There's nothing else missing for it to go to the mace. What happens after you wove it? That's it. It goes to the mace. There's no other act in between weaving it and putting it on the mace. So if you wove this particular garment for a mace, it gets the laws of the mace. That's called hazmona. But in a case, so let's say if you are spinning wool for the garment, that's two steps ahead. First you spin it, and then you weave it. So if a person is just spinning thread for weaving for the garment of the mace, then that's not called preparation. Why? Because there's still a second step, because after this spinning, you still have to weave it. So therefore, it's not called preparation for a mace, because there's another step before it becomes a garment for a mace. And the same thing is over here with the bricks. When you build bricks, that's not yet the end. That's not yet. You still need to go ahead and put a brick itself isn't yet considered the end. You have to put it into the wall. Empty bricks is not yet prepared. Once you put it into the wall, that is the final doing. And therefore, the prep beforehand, which means making those bricks or buying those bricks. I mean, here we talk about making those bricks would not. Well, let's just go see this in the Gemara. So the Gemara first gave a rule that if you have new bricks that were made for the shul, they don't get the kedusha of the shul, and you can sell or use them for whatever you like. So the Gemara says like this: even according to the opinion that says that when you prepare something that is already considered important, that the item you're preparing for, it gets the rule of that, as Rashi brings down. This is in Meseches Sanhedrin in the chapter Nigmar Hadin on page Mem Zayin Omid Beis. Over there, with regards Gabei Oireg Beged Lemeis, one who is weaving a garment for a mace. So the Asur over there, he holds that the Asur Behazmona, that just by preparing, it is Asur B'tachrichei hameis da'asiri b'hana, by shrouds of the mace that are prohibited to benefit. So just by preparing these shrouds, the preparation is already considered important enough that these shrouds, even though a mace has never used them, they will become like the shrouds of a mace that are asur ba'anoah. Now, where do we know shrouds of Rameis are Asur Ba'anoah? The Gamrin and Shom, Megillah, Rufa, we have a Gzeir Shove. It says by the mace and by the Egla Rufa, there's Shom, and there's a Gzeir Shove, so we know that it's Asur Ba'anoah. Just like by Egla Rufa, we learn from the Pasuk that it's prohibited to benefit, so also by shrouds of a mace is prohibited to benefit. Kidemefarish Hosom, as the Gemara explains of the Nigmaradin. So, even the person that says that when you weave a beged, a garment for shrouds, it becomes Asur Ba'anoah, as if the mace has already worn these shrouds. Hani Mili, this would only apply in a case Kigoin Ha'oireg Beged Lemeis. It's in a situation as, for example, one who weaves a garment for a mace, then we say that garment, that beged, becomes Asur Ba'anoah, like the garments of a mace, since it was woven for him. I'm just going to skip the Rashi for a second. Aval Hocha, but in our case, in which you prepared bricks for a building, is not like weaving a garment for me. That's kitvi la'arig dami. That's like the spinning for the weaving that's compared to. So it's not the weaving. Here, building the bricks or preparing the bricks, it's not yet done. The leka leman the omar, and there is no opinion that would say that it is considered kedusha. Let's see the Rashi. Hani mili ba'oireg beged lemeis only applies when you weave a garment for a mace. So Rashi says in that case there is an opinion that says that that's already sufficient to make it Asur Ba'anoah, because in that case she'einei choser elo ariga. Because what is lacking for this to become a garment of a mace? Just the weaving. So when you weave it, then that's done. Then it becomes. So how does it become the mace? You have to weave it. And therefore the weaving is considered already for the mace. The kivon shenerag, once it's been woven, miyad haviroi lepoirshoy al hames. Once it's woven, it's immediately fit to spread it out over the mace. So the weaving is considered the last part before spreading it out, and that's why that would become Asur Ba'anoah. But bricks, you have ready bricks. That's not yet the end that has to take place here. You need still, they're lacking doing living noisom because you have to build it into the wall. And therefore, when we talk about bricks of the shul, that's considered the same level as spinning for the weaving. And there is no opinion in that way. Everybody agrees. Nobody would say, oh, spinning it for a mace would make that spinned wool or whatever into a Asur Ba'anoah, that the thread that you spun should become Asur Ba'anoah. No, there's no such an opinion. Why? Because that's still a step before. And same thing is, bricks are still a step before, and you still have to build them into the wall, and that's why it's not considered to be a preparation, according to no opinion, and you're okay to use it for whatever you want, just the bricks. But the shul, what did we say? It depends. If you sold it or you exchanged it, and there is something to rest upon the sanctity, then the shul that you had can be used for anything now. If, on the other hand, you're trying to rent it out or you want to loan it out, then you can't do it because there's nothing here substantial. Now the Gemara wants to know matana. What is the halacha when there is a gift? So let's say the people of the shul gifted a shul to someone else, and the other person just used the shul. The shul people didn't get any money, so are they allowed to use the shul that they got for a gift for anything they wish? Rashi explains matana. What is matana? Nosnu b'nei ha'ir b'nei beis knesses l'tashmish choil. People of the city gave a shul to be used for weekly matters, not a shul. Is that allowed? So the Gemara says, Pligi ba Rabacha v'Ravina. So we have a dispute over here between the two rabbis, Rabacha and Ravina. Chad Osar, one of them prohibited. We don't know which one it was, but V'chad Shari, and one said, okay, that's permissible. The Gemara is going to explain. One says, a gift, you can use that shul forever you want. What's the reasoning of their machlokes? The Gemara explains. Manda Osar, the opinion that prohibits, he says, Bahai Tivka Kedusha. With this, the gift, the Kedusha, would expire. How would the Kedusha live? You didn't get anything back. You need to get something back. You gave it as a gift. That's not sufficient to get the Kedusha from the original shul removed by giving it to the other person, by giving it as a gift. That's his reasoning. Uman Deshari, and the one who permits it. So the Gemara says, I lav dahavelei hano'amine. If there was not to him, it says in a singular language, but to him meaning to the one who is giving them away, the people of the city. If they did not have a benefit from that person, in other words, if he didn't, why are they all of a sudden giving somebody a shul? Why are they giving them the building? It must be that the person has given them something to deserve it. They don't give a gift just like that. So the Gemara says, if they had not received a benefit from the recipient, they would not have given it to him. So why are they giving it to him? They're giving it to him because they received something. So he says that makes it like a sale. It's as if they so then again, that gift becomes like a sale because they got. Now, even though there is no object here to say that this is the Kedusha, like when you get money, but we're saying that the previous items that they received is what takes out the Kedusha from the Beis HaKnesses, and that's why the gift is a gift, and that's why that's okay. All right, that's what the Gemara says. Gemara further brings down, we have things that are used for a mitzvah, called tashmish mitzvah. The sukkah. During Yontif, we use the schach and the walls for a sukkah. They're called the use. That's how I perform the mitzvah. But they're not considered kedusha in themselves. Tzitzis. You use it to perform a mitzvah. Shofar, you use it to perform a mitzvah. But They're no sanctity in themselves. They're not kedusha. So we're saying like this. Tana Rabbona, we learned in the Braisa. Tashmishe mitzvah. Things that are used for a mitzvah, as Rashi explains, Devorim sheshimshu bahen mitzvah, those items that were used for a mitzvah, nizrokim, they can be thrown away. You don't have to put them away in the shemus or anything else. What do people do with the schach? They take branches and they use it for their sukkah. After sukkahs, they put it away. That's it. You can have some job if you're going to have to bury all the schach that you use. What do you do with the esrog? I mean, some people use the esrog. They preserve it. Some people use the lulav for, they burn it Erev Pesach, but those are not requirements from the Ikar, from Halacha. You can basically nizrokim. You can throw them away. But Tashmishi Kedusha, things that are not just used for a mitzvah, but they become items of Kedusha, use of holiness. There are certain things that are holy. What's holy? A parsha, a Torah portion, tefillin, mezuzah, these are all Torah portions. They're holy. Tashmishi Kedusha means those that you use for Kedusha are also considered holy, and you can't just throw them away. Nignozim, they you must hide it. You must put them into Geniza, into hiding. The Gemara lists out now, Ve'elu hein tashmishi mitzvah. The following are considered uses of mitzvah versus those that are uses of Kedusha. Sukkah, you build the sukkah, lulav, shofar, and tzitzis. You perform the mitzvah of sukkah with the wood and the schach. The lulav you perform, he says lulav, but with the 4 species. The shofar is for the Rosh Hashanah and tzitzis. The following are uses of Kedusha. So first we have a delus kami. A delus kami means a bag that's made for svarim, a svarim bag, you designed for svarim. You can even say like even like the cover of the Sefer Torah, or they have the Sephardic shuls, they have like the big box in which the Torah sits in, or even a regular bag designed for a book. Rashi says the luskami kimoy amtachas, like a bag, the sack, and a sack losum boy sefer, to put a sefer there. Sepharim, I mean, just the Sefer Torahs, or maybe it means all Sepharim, tefillin, umezuzas. So even, let's say, those are used for a kedusha, those are tashmishi kedusha and mezuzas, so can't just discard them even when it's possible, even when you no longer use them. You have to geniza, you have to hide them. I said before, Luskami is talking about, or a sefer. Next, we're talking about the Tikshal Sefer Torah. The previous Sfarim is talking about just ordinary Sfarim, just books, just holy books. The Tikshal Sefer Torah and the Tik means, Rashi says that Tik means a long. An artik is a something short, Rashi says. So whether we have a tikshel sefer Torah, that's the holder in which you put the sefer Torah, or nartik shel tefillin, the bag of tefillin, like what we use, a bag, let's say a tefillin bag. Tik v'nartik, zokt Rashi chodahi. This is really the same. A tik and a nartik is really the same. El shaloshin tik The language of a tik, neufel al davar aruch. That applies to something long. We call it a tik. The loshen nartik, when we call something a nartik, that's neufel al davar kotzer. That's something narrow, something short. So it's just a matter of a different kind of a bag, but it's a holder. But basically, these holders are considered tashmish kedusha. Further, uritzu oisehem. Also, the straps. The straps are also considered to be tashmish kedusha. They serve kedusha. I guess what makes them kedusha is the Torah part in them, because all these are tefillin, mezuzah, sephorim, the box. They're all surrounding Torah matters, holy matters. Versus the other things are not. You do a mitzvah with them, but they're not holy matters. That's the difference between tashmishi kedusha and tashmishi mitzvah. Further, Amar Rava says Rava, Meireish hava amina. In the beginning, I used to say, Hai kursaya. Kursaya is a bima shel eitz, Rashi says. A wooden bima like we have. Right? Now, what happens? You have a bima. On top of the bima, you have a cover, and you put the Torah on the cover. So the question is, what's the status of that bima? Is that considered a tashmish kedusha, or it's a tashmish detashmish? Because you don't actually use the bima, you've spread out a cover. And then you put the Torah on the cover. So the bima is a tashmish of the tashmish. That should be okay. So he says, Rava says, in the beginning, I would say, Hai kursaya, this kursaya, the bima shalates, this wooden bima, tashmish, the tashmish who, vishori. It's a use of a use, and it's permissible. Rashi says, what is tashmish the tashmish? Shapoides mapa olav. First, you put a cover on top of the bima, on top of the kursaya. V'achar kach noisen sefer Torah olav. And then you put the sefer Torah onto the cover. But he says, kibon de chazina. Once I saw, the people sometimes put the Torah directly on the bima without putting the cover on. Since I've seen the Moisvi Iluya Sefer Torah, they actually put the Sefer Torah directly onto the bima, not on the cover. The Moisvi Sefer Torah Olei Beloy Mappa, without the cover. Amina said Tashmish Kedushahu, that this is a Tashmish Kedusha, the Kursaya, but also and it's prohibited because they use it also directly. But Rava, further Rava said, Mereish Havi Amina, first I would say, Hai Riso. Those days they had like we have today, like the when you open up we have a wooden. In the old days, they'd have a curtain in front of there, not a wooden thing. That seems to be besides the paroiches that we hang outside. So they have a inside cover. So that yiriyah shepersis fivus oram b'mifnim, that you spread out around the ark and the inside of the ark, it's a tashmish, the tashmishu. This becomes a use for a use. It's not directly used because the tashmish for the Sefer Torah is the ark. This serves the ark to cover it up. So it's serving the ark, but it's not serving directly the Sefer Torah. It's part of the ark, and therefore the ark is the tashmish. This is tashmish, the tashmish. So Rashi says tashmish, the tashmish, tashmish al-orim. This becomes a tashmish of the ark. But he said, But once I saw, given the chazina, once I saw the ifile, they fold up that curtain that was on the inside. Umanchi sifra iloya. They put a Sefer Torah in it. I guess they would take off, when they would remove it to take out the Sefer Torah, they would use that and put it on the bima and put the Torah on it. So kivon the chazino the ifile that they folded up, umanchi sifra iloya, and they put a sefer on it. The Rashi says the ifile. Sometimes they would fold it up underneath Sefer Torah. Then Amina, I changed my mind and I said, Tashmish Kedusha Hu. That becomes a Tashmish of Kedusha, and it's also because this serves directly for the Sefer Torah. Further, the Gemara says, says Rabbi, Hai Tivuso the Irpat. You have a ark that has become, it's ruined, it's broke. Oren, Irpat means Oren Shenis Skalkel, Vinifrad Michiburei. A ark that has been broken and it's sort of separated, is no longer connected. We find this, it's an unusual language, irpat. So Rashi says we find a similar language in the Braise in Yevamis Kubeis Ahmed Aleph. Min al hamerupat means a shoe that came apart. So it's basically an oren that came apart. Me'abdo tivo zutrasi shori, to make from it a smaller ark. I guess they can't put it together. It's permissible. Tevo sudrasi lases tevo katano mina gedola rishona, to make it smaller than the first one, is permissible. But kurusaya, to make it into a bima of wood, to make it into a bima. So we're talking to make it from an oren to make it into a bima. That you're not allowed. You can make it into a smaller oren, but you can't make it into a krusaya. That's also. Why? So you're not allowed to do that. Vama Rava says further Rava, Hai Prisa the Bola. If you have the curtain of the oren, the paroiches of the oren, that has become, that withered, became ruined. Prisa the Bola, Prisa is the curtain the Bola. Yerias oren shabalu, the panels of the oren or the curtain, the paroiches on that they become ruined. Lemevda priso lesafri shori. To make it a cover for a Sefer Torah is permissible because you're elevating the Kedusha. It served as a curtain for the Aron Kodesh, for the Torah, and now you're making it as a cover for the Torah itself. That's permissible. So limi'avdei priso lisifri, to make it a cover for a Sefer Shori, that's permissible. But l'chumoshim, but not for a full Torah, but chumoshim, if you take a Torah, sometimes they would take the Torah, and each chumash, we write it in a book, but they would take each chumash in a rolled up, you'd have 5 separate chumoshim. Those Torahs are not considered to be as one Torah. It's not a kosher Torah. It's 5 separate chumoshim. So you can't use that to cover that, because first it was a cover for entire Torah. You can't use it to cover the chumoshim asir. To cover chumoshim is prohibited. Rashi, yes, svarim she'nasuin kol chumash levadei. There are svarim that are made, each chumash by itself has its own robe. They're all made in a panel in a way, and that's prohibited. And finally, the Gemara brings Omar Rava. So Rava says, and these are bags. He's talking about Hanis Vili de Chumoshi. Hanis Vili, those are bags that you put the Chumoshim in there. We had before the Luskami. Rashi says Vili Kimo de Luskami. That's what we had before. The Kamatri the Sifri. And boxes of Svarim. Tashmish Kedusha Ninu. They're considered to be a use of Kedusha, Vinignozim, and you have to hide them because they're serving the Svarim. But we've already said this before, Frank the Gemara. What is he trying to tell us here? Let's just do the Rashi. It's a type of a bag of the Chumashim. And also the Kamatri discipline. What's Kamatri? It's a box. Kamatri is Argus. Shekoidim Ashkerinu. They call them Ashkerinu. It's a kind of a box. So Rashi says, V'harva yesh b'targum unkelos. There's a lot of this committed in the Targum of Yerusham ben Uziel. He says over there, Chavolim Chavushim, that's a pasuk in Yecheskel. In Perik Chav Zayin, he translated Argeze Amlitz Dehuzihu Raisa Bekamatrin. So over there it means boxes. Amlitz are shining Kamatrin in type of boxes again. V'chein, same thing, he types the word la'asher ala maltocho, so he translated is lida'al kamitre. Whatever, these are kind of boxes. Rashi is just bringing a proof. So these holders of the Chumoshim and the boxes of the Svarim, Tashmish Kedusha Nino, they are a Tashmish of Kedusha, and Ignozim, and they are put away in the shemus. You hide them. You can't discard them. So the Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious. Why should they be different than all the other things that we're using for Svarim? So the Gemara says, Mahu de Tema, you might think, the Hani Lav Lekovid Avidon. These are not meant for honor. Lineturi Ba'alma. This is just to guard them, Avidi. Kamash Malon, no, that they're honor, and therefore you can't just discard them. You will need to also bury them, as we do with all the Tashmishi Kedusha. I guess those items particularly would one would assume that they would be more as a protective, and maybe like in today you can equate this maybe like the covers of the sefer that make it harder, like a protection of the sefer. But certainly that is all considered Tashmishi Kedusha, and you can't just discard them, you have to nignus. Okay, so let's give over a vort of the Parsha Vayakel Pekudei. So first of all, this Shabbos, we do a double portion, and we're actually finishing the Torah as well. And the Pekudei is the last part of the portion of Shmois, not the Torah, finishing the portion, the section of Shmois. And the Rebbe brings out a point that Vayakel means to bring people together. But sometimes when you bring people together, you're just bringing them into one room. It's not like they've turned into a new entity. Vayakel, to make a kohol, to make it a gathering of a kohol, like sometimes we have the words Vayilakid, Vayikabetz, Those means just physically getting 10 people into a room. But vayakil means you turn them into a kohol. We all have our individuality, and we all have, the more important, we all have that we're part of a community. And in Torah, these are not conflicts, but rather they complement each other, which means each person has talents individually. Somebody knows how to sing, somebody knows how to write, somebody knows how to learn, somebody knows how to dance, Each one has their individuality. They have their special talents. But your special talents can only fully be actualized if you put it together with the community. You make it into a call. You make it into something together. You have a symphony which is made up from various different instruments. Each instrument adds and makes it more beautiful. You get a good people, Meitzar and Tobin, you get all these beautiful symphonies, but you need each individual. But when are they really valued? When they come together, when you have that kohol, when you have that union. And then yet, when you have the kohol, that each one individual is empowered and is elevated to a much higher level, so that even in his individual talents, it is accentuated and it's stronger, it's more powerful than it was before. You see, the Mishkan had the vessels. Those were individual parts. And our parsha talks about the vessels of the Mishkan, about they created everything individuals. Now, these individuals, kalim, structures, only became kadosh and holy when they became part of the general Mishkan. Once they built the Mishkan, so they were all pieces that were part of this whole Mishkan. But after they became parts of the whole Mishkan, then even when the Mishkan is taken apart, each individual vessels remains with its sanctity, with its holiness. Which means when we start davening, I'm not sure in all of your sitters, but in our sitter, the first thing we say is Hareini Mekabel Olai Mitzvah Sasei Shel V'Ahavta L'Reach Kamecha. We accept upon myself the mitzvah of loving thy fellow as yourself. So even though I'm davening for myself, we're each one praying, but we include ourselves, we say, we're all together. Even the language of our prayer, we speak in plural. We say, V'choneinu, grace us. Baruch Oleinu, bless for us. We don't say, Baruch Oisi Choneini. We don't say the singular. We're including itself as a community. Now, each individual is important, but first and foremost, when we start, we have to know that we are part of a bigger, something which is much bigger than ourselves and our powers and our individuality. We are part of a larger community. I like to say the story about a person who's on a boat and he bought a seat and then he starts drilling in his seat. And the captain says, what are you doing? He says, my seat, I have the right to make a hole. He says, but we're all in the same boat. He says, if the boat, we're all going to sink together. So he says, yes, it's your seat, but it affects all of us. So first and foremost, we have to know that we are part of a bigger and stronger and greater people. But then the community that we come doesn't take away and doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice our talent for the sake of the community. Just the opposite. The community enhances and strengthens. It's just like the Kalim and the Mishkan, the individuals. The Mishkan was able to enhance that the Kalim that you build, that were really on their own, they don't really count that much because they're not Kedusha. Only once you bring them into the Mishkan, then they become holy, and then they become the stronger. In life, we always have to remember that we are part of the Jewish people, which gives us that extra strength that we need, and that we also have the special strength as individuals. We're not going to take away individual rights, capabilities for the sake of the community, but rather the community is made up from all of our individuals. And therefore, we are all and staying part of a call. When we are part of a call, then we're strong, and then we're stronger, that nothing can break us, nothing can take us apart. We remain strong and fast, and we can reach with the power that we have from the community to much greater heights than we can reach ourselves. And that's what we say at the end when we finish the Torah. The Torah, in essence, is also the same way. Torah is made up from a bunch of letters, individual letters. Can't have a Torah if you don't have every single letter. All letter, each of us, each letter is important to make up the Torah. But then, each letter individually is precious. Each letter has to be surrounded by the parchment and be individual. You can't connect letters together and have them mishmash together. So while we all make up the one Torah, but yet our individuality is expressed in it all. And then when we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, when we finish the Parsha, we say it both in our individual letter as individuals and as part of the community to get the strength to stay connected and to serve Hashem. And I guess till next week. Also next week, unfortunately, I have to start 7:35. Try to make it just 5 minutes. And we'll go for as long as we can. I don't know. I hope that works for everybody. But okay, we'll leave it over here. Did I turn off my speaker? I don't hear anybody.
No, thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's Hashem. Tuesday, we have a couple of weeks. Then we have Pesach, so we'll have to deal with that. But also, we're inching our way to the end of the Gemara, Baruch Hashem. So we're inching our way. So it's not like we're almost done with the Masechet Megillah. It took us a couple of years, but we'll get there. Slowly but surely. Stay well, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.